Alright, I wanted to do another quick scene here, but featuring some gold foil. I haven't stamped on this for... It feels like a lot longer. It's probably been a couple weeks or something like that, but I don't know, when you don't do something for stamping-wise for a little bit of time, I don't know, it feels like a while. You know, time flies when you're having fun. And I do have a lot of fun using this foil right here. It's cheap, it's easy to use. Things don't dry on it super fast, but nevertheless, it's great fun to play around with. And I just, what can I say? I like the reflective quality in terms of how light comes off of my surface like that. It just makes for a really dynamic surface. Doesn't mean that I like it more than glossy paper, or something like that, but it's just always kind of fun to play around with. And I don't know, I'm getting a little bit of experience using it, but I haven't used it so much so that I think I've seen everything or I have it down. As a matter of fact, I was trying to decide on whether or not I should stamp my main imagery in black or in gold. Gold makes for a pretty dynamic surface, or ink, when you're using these types of reflectives. Okay, there's my cloud right like that. Does it look like a decent cloud to you? I think I'm going to try and use a quote stamp in here too, so I'm going to leave some room for my quote stamp. You have to kind of leave a little bit of space. You can't make things too busy if you're going to stamp the quote directly onto the surface here, so keeping that in mind. And when you're working with these clouds, my recommendation, which makes it easier for us too, is to kind of go a little bit irregular. Don't go for a completely smooth application. I think it makes for, I don't know, kind of a more natural looking cloud. Alright, so that being said, see, I'll go like that with the first one. Then the second one, I'll just do a little bit more, I don't know, translucent. In other words, I won't apply so much ink. And after I do that, I like to go in to the piece, because a cloud, oftentimes, it has that little kind of vapor, moisture coming off of the top of it. And that, in addition to the main body, is being illuminated, so you have a much kind of mistier edge to the structure of it. So I'll show you what that looks like here. So there's the main part, and let's see if I can show it. I don't know if you can see that kind of edge there that's kind of glowing a little bit. So it's not so harsh of an edge, we have that kind of blended in like so. All right, now you can kind of play around with this a lot more too. You can move ink around, you can drag your cotton ball here. Didn't mention it, but I would always recommend a 100% cotton ball. Okay, it just goes on much better with the 100% cotton from what I've found. Okay, so we're going to stamp out our chapel in here. I'm thinking about, shall we go with gold? Let's go with gold here. I haven't done this in a while. I've been stamping kind of black inks on my metallic surfaces to go for added contrast, just so our imagery stands out a little bit more. Pausing here. My gold here is really needs some additional re-inker, so I'll do that. Okay, one of the things that I'll get used to one of these days is just how thick pigment inks are. I always feel like I'm over-inking my pad, but the inks are so thick, you're not over-inking. I know you guys probably know that better than I do. I haven't been working with pigment inks for too long, but this is also Brilliance inks, okay? So Brilliance inks dry much faster because of that drying agent in them that allows it to dry on surfaces like this. Okay, it doesn't dry fast. It's not like a StazOn, so I don't expect it to dry that fast, but it will dry over time. And I just did a video talking about the different drying times, and I would give it a week, just to air dry. It's not the type of surface and media combination that you want to, where you need a card in a hurry. But I don't know, I think this paper is totally worth it, just kind of look ahead a little bit and, stamp things out accordingly. All right, so there's your gold impression there. Metallics on metallic, and a very, very bright kind of metallic there. I think we get some pretty decent impressions off of this combination here. It's better than I would have thought, okay? Just because the surface is so slick, you don't have kind of the absorption factor that usually is required with most types of pigment inks. All right, this is the tree here. I'm going to put it on the side. I'm not going to use every stamp from the nature set. I'm using number 10 right here. This is just a quarter-page card, by the way. Okay, so some trees like that. And then what we'll do is we'll take our Sedge filler here. This is just a very generic texture stamp. And I use it for any scenes where I have kind of grassy areas to fill in. Okay, let's just get that texture down there like so. Anyone who uses these metallics to stamp on, it's a tough photographic assignment to get a good photo of something like this. So I know it's kind of hard to depict, in a still photo what you're going after, but there's that. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do, and I hope I can do it here, I might have to heat set a little bit, but my experiment on this piece is to take a white pen, and I'm going to illuminate the inside of the chapel. I often do that with my cabins, but I haven't done it with this chapel before. So I just want to bring kind of a light, interior lighting, into that chapel right there. Okay, now here's what's a little bit different. I'm going to take this white pigment ink here, and I'm going to illuminate some of the areas down in this grassy area here to bring an illumination to it. The gold foil, where it's very reflective, if it's reflecting light like that, is otherwise kind of a darker surface like that, right? In comparison to like white paper, right? This is a much darker surface until it's reflecting that light in it. So we can utilize this white ink for our illumination, okay? That gets, it's kind of an unusual type of surface that as the stamper here, what you're doing is you're trying to determine where your lighting might be in the piece. And it's easy to tell when you're working on a white piece of paper because you're just making things darker, okay? And you can tell where things are lighter and what things are kind of darker, but on something like this, it's really difficult to tell because you have light reflecting off of it. And I don't know, it's just kind of hard to tell where to apply some inks at times. Okay, so pigment inks dry darker than what they look like when they're wet, so I'm adding some additional tone up into those clouds to illuminate it a little bit more. All right, now let's see. I want my kind of larger leads, I think. Now, one of the combinations I like using on foil, okay, is I like to use white sometimes for my foreground imagery. I'm always going dark when it comes to things like, glossy cardstock. but I do like to use white or gold. Actually, maybe I'll go for gold first. Okay, let me use some of that. So for this grass here, okay, this is off of a different set here, but I just want to go for some added depth in here, so I'm using the larger kind of reeds here. And we'll go like this. Okay. You can't really see it very well, but what that's going, hopefully it will represent kind of a layered foreground area where we have multi-toned imagery in that foreground. Okay. And what I mean by that is I'll stamp it out in gold. Some black on here from my previous usage. I can use it in the gold, but when I'm going into the white here, I kind of want to take off a lot of that ink. There might be some black pigment ink or something like that on there, or versifying Clair or something like that. I don't want to mix it with my Brilliance white. Okay. All right, so let's go like this down here. At this point in time, you have to kind of be careful about your impression pressure. Okay. Don't press down too hard, otherwise you have oil-based thick ink making an impression on oil-based ink that's still wet, so you don't want to kind of make it slide. I had to kind of get used to that. I mean, it's not hard. It just requires you to just be mindful of it as you're doing it. Okay, talking about layers of texture. Let's go with this. Okay, I went a little bit heavy-handed with that white down there. Now that's going to dry or set up and get much darker than that. But still, while we're working on it, let's adjust it accordingly as much as you can. And then, when it kind of mellows out a little bit more, it'll be much more integrated, okay? Now this, I'm adding this down. I can't even see it, okay? And it's down there, okay. This little texture, it's just kind of going over that white. I mean, I could barely see it, sitting here. So I doubt you can see it on there. But, that being said, let's just go to the white now, okay? And let's add some of that texture in here, okay? Yeah, much more visible. And then use multiple impressions of it so you get kind of a lighter impression of it in there. But look at this. I mean, this is just one of those little kind of details, all right, that kind of bring everything together in terms of kind of the continuity between objects. And so using kind of the multiple impressions of it like that. But look at what that did for that texture down there, okay? It kind of created a nice little setting in there. All right, now I'm really hoping that I can add that white in there because that's going to create this nice kind of transition of values going from white here, and then we get it up there, up in the sky. And I think that's going to be the visual path people would take. People would start in the foreground and then just kind of go up there into the sky. Let's see, what is the word I'm looking for? It's I don't know. I guess a visual pathway or something like that would be accurate. It's when someone takes a look at a scene or something like that, or any kind of piece of artwork. There's something that usually someone's eye will go to first, and then they'll follow a certain type of path, direction. Sometimes it's a circular direction. Sometimes it goes in like this and goes up. It just depends on kind of the position of things and whatnot. That's why I usually have a little bit of an opening in my foreground like this, just to let the viewer's eye enter the scene. Now, I inadvertently, I wasn't thinking about it, but I stamped this tree over here, and then the way that I stamped that white, it makes it look like a little kind of road or pathway going right up into this area right here. I could have had that tree right next to it, and I think that would have looked fine too, but the way it is, there's a little bit of an opening in there for kind of the viewer to enter the piece. Okay, now let's see if I can just heat set this a little bit because it's going to be really hard to apply wet acrylic paint in those windows there. When this is just so wet, you know, the impression is wet in there. So it'd be like applying wet into wet. That's not going to work that great. All right, so I'm just going to heat set here a little bit and see if that will set up. I don't know if it'll set up, you know. This ink on here will dry over time, but it doesn't dry quickly. I saw something interesting that I hadn't noticed before, if it happened before. But you know how when you're embossing something, you see that it's going and going and going, and then suddenly there's this kind of, I don't know, whatever, melting of the surface there. That's what just happened right here. I think I applied too much. I have that little rainbow type of effect right in here. But can you see that? Oh, that is so interesting. It reminds me of working with metals or something like brass in my crafts class in college about how you can kind of alter color, but that's what happened right here. So I know it's kind of appropriate right there, don't you think? It's just right on the chapel to get that kind of color in there. It's like a rainbow or something like that. So I don't know, you can kind of play around with it. It's right in there too. I mean, it's not anywhere else, right? See that right there? Who knows? Maybe you can heat a rainbow up into this or something like that, into the clouds. But I don't know, the colors changed when I did that, so. Alright, let's see if I can focus in here. Sometimes the camera has a hard time focusing because it's a mirror. But that area in there changed. I don't think it's dry. I don't know, maybe it is. I'm not getting that ink on my finger. I don't know, well, let's see. I've done this before, and I didn't think it set up like that. Well, I didn't heat down here as much, but I don't know. Maybe heat setting does the trick. I don't know. Like I said, you know, when I first started this, I'm learning all the time with this. I don't think I know it. There's the rainbow and kind of that drying effect going on, I guess. And this is applying just fine. I do have that little framework in the window there, so that little grid. So, I mean, you could just fill it in, or just go like up and down like that. And you have your windows kind of illuminated. I don't know if that's just like too much. You know, it is really kind of light. There are some windows on the side, but I think that would be a little bit overkill. Let me see if I can add a little bit more of this in here. Something like that. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. Okay, but that really stands out now. Almost too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in some of this illumination onto maybe the little porch area. Okay, I'm going to put little kind of highlights down like that, and I'll bring some little highlights down here, okay? Like so. It's a little bit of lighting. Okay, boy, that is so reflective like that. See that kind of lighting in there? Here's our chapel like that. All right. Now let's bring some of these textures in different areas as well, okay? Just so that that white isn't so stark white in that window area, okay? So let's bring some of this down a little bit here. I'm adding it to some of these little rocks. I'm drawing in my own little rocks here too. I think that heat setting dried things really good. Okay, let's bring some of this on our foreground elements like this. Little, could be dew or just some reflections coming off of our reeds here. Okay. You put some on your tree branches if you want to. Okay, now in these areas up here in the clouds, you can kind of illuminate these. I mean, so when you're working on this type of surface, it's really hard to tell if, you know, if we're depicting a daytime, a nighttime scene, or what. But now that we're adding this element of light in it, I think, you know, we can pretty much safely say that it looks a little more like a nighttime type of scene, right? All right, you see where I'm kind of adding this up into the clouds, you know, it's a little bit of a kind of a highlighting feature. Okay. All right. Now, let's see if I can get this straight. This is nature always wears the colors of the spirit. On this gold like this, I don't know, I thought that was a good quote for this piece. You know, being that it's on gold, I think that something like this would be a great, I don't know, card or theme, visual theme for something like friendship. It could be, you know, a sympathy card or something like that too. Just, you know, someone, it's like a golden heart, right? Or a heart of gold. All right, every time I ink up my pads, especially with such thick ink, I'm really being careful to get it evenly applied across that. I hope it's not kind of blotchy. Okay, now I'm going to do mine a little bit off center. Let's go kind of leaning on the left, I think. And, okay, so I have this whole open area up in the sky. I mean, you can center it too, but I think it will be good kind of over here. I have no idea if that is crooked or, you know, I just kind of hold my breath. Well, not too bad. It's kind of leaning, I think, a touch, but who cares? Okay, so you have that, like so. Isn't that fun there? But see, everything's starting to kind of balance out a little bit with that white. I think I could use something over here, though. I'm not sure. Or maybe an overhang. Let's try... Oh. How about, let's just go for this. Just because I happen to have it right on my desk right here. It's called Spooky Branch. In here it's not going to be spooky, but let's see. Let's go for, do I want it gold? I think it's going to have to be a little more bold. Let's do it in white here. Try not to go into your text. I got pretty close there. Got to be kind of careful about that. All right. Let's come over here. Pretty good. Let's see. I was going to have another kind of branch over here, maybe. I'll come right around here. I don't know, it was just looking a little bit too dark in that space right in there, so something like that. Now, that spooky branch, it doesn't have the kind of the visual context of this piece here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white paint pen. I'm kind of debating on whether I want to go with some colors on there. Like it might be kind of interesting to put a little bit of a pink blossom on it. I think that would look okay in this piece. Kind of like spring blooms, like apple or cherry blossoms or something like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put little kind of blossoms on these some of these branches, like so. Okay, so it's like a little kind of growth and I don't know, kind of a it's life or whatever, It's just kind of bringing those that object into I don't know. Oftentimes, it's kind of most ideal um, incarnation. We love seeing kind of like blossoming, blooming trees in the spring. And plus, don't you think this is kind of balancing things out? We have that white element up there in the piece. We have the kind of that visual continuity, basically, of the white dot. So the more things that you kind of give to your scenes in common in different areas can bring potential continuity into your setting. All right, now if there's these little blooms like that, what you can do is you can take and it's like little blossoms or little flower petals, blossoms are kind of floating down, off the tree onto the ground here. All right, that looks pretty good. And I guess I can heat set this. I don't know. I don't know if that heat set. I don't want to drag my finger across there to find out, but that felt pretty dry to me. I don't see. There's no ink on my finger there, so let me see if that kind of that rainbow type of thing is still in there, or if it. Yeah, look at that. It's kind of interesting. So we get that, but I don't know. It seems to work in context, don't you think? Of the piece having that rainbow right there. So I don't know. This opens up too many new doors. Like I'm gonna have to do like some clouds or something like that on this foil, and then really heat set it and do that kind of. I forgot what we used to call that. I don't know. You can help me out when that. That happens like on metals and things like that. I was in a jewelry making class, and you just kind of heat it up, and it just things like brass started turning different colors. That's what this color looks like almost. It looks like brass to me. But I don't know. And it just seems like totally appropriate with the quote there. So nature always wears the colors of the spirit. Now, would I heat set this? I guess I could. I like just kind of setting it aside, but okay, now that's still wet over here, but I was heating mostly right in here, so away from that. But this area in here got pretty dry. Okay, so anyways, that's my card here, and that's the first time I think that I can remember adding that interior illumination with the chapel before. I don't know. I might have done it before, but I just don't recall doing it. It doesn't seem familiar to me. But that stood out too much, okay? So the thing is that you bring in all these little similar types of light. It could just be a little dot in these areas on some of these rocks in here. I put a little bit of a illumination on the top of some of these rocks, or I just drew in, some extra little dots in there to kind of match the opacity and lightness of that, okay? Because when I stamped in white in here, That's a little bit more translucent. The gold foil shows through it a little bit. You can even see it, you know, in the quote there. It's not just white. It's not as white as that, right? It's because the gold is showing through. So you bring some of that degree of opacity in these other areas, and it can just be a few little dots here and there, and that just kind of evens out that illumination. But look at that. It's like you can't see the chapel really well, but then it comes up like that, and boom, there it appears like that, kind of in the nighttime type of the nighttime air. That looks totally different than that, you know. And look at that. I don't know. Like I said, I really enjoy playing around with these different types of foils like this. It's just so much fun, and I would encourage you to give it a shot. You know, this paper pack here. I'm not trying to sell you on any of this, but I don't know. It is just really fun to play around with, and I don't know. It makes for a quick scene. Look at that. You can do little rainbows in there too. You know, we were looking for holographic things, and this is not holographic, but that's that same type of, I don't know. You can get like a holographic look on the gold now. Not quite this crazy, right? But you know, that's not too bad for a kind of a nice subtle look. So heat, I don't know. I mean, I know people do it. They've talked about this on, I think, the Foiling Snobs group. You know, when heating it, you have to be careful about that. But I think you can incorporate that into your design in terms of your techniques used on, or potential techniques used on it. So, oh my gosh. Fun stuff. Hope you enjoyed the scene. Thanks as always for tuning into the channel. If you enjoy this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And we'll see you on the next video.